Hello everyone, my name is Jessie and welcome to Plot Twists. So today on honor of Valentine's Day, we are going to talk about my top 5 book romances. Some of these are legitimate romance novels. Some of these are books where the relationship between the two characters is extremely central to the plot, even though its technical classification might not be romance. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So the first book that I want to talk about is The Rescue by Nicholas Sparks. This is one of his earlier novels and definitely one that I think is extremely underrated. So this centers our main characters of Denise, who is a mom, and Taylor, who is a volunteer firefighter. One day Denise gets in a relatively bad accident. Taylor ends up saving her son from the car, and their relationship kind of sort of develops from there. One of the reasons why this is one of my favorites is I feel like the romance in this particular novel is just so well done and so realistic. I don't think there's any part of their developing relationship that doesn't make sense to me or seems even moderately forced. And I don't think that's always the case with romance novels. I think sometimes there's situations that are just kind of thrown in there that don't make a whole lot of sense. So if you haven't read this by him, I highly, highly recommend it. The next book that I wanted to talk about is Landline. This centers our two main characters of Georgie and Neil, and their relationship is kind of sort of on the rocks in the beginning of this story. Georgie ends up in a situation where, despite this taking place in the 2010s, she has to use a landline phone because that's all that's available, and the Neil that she ends up talking to doesn't seem quite like the Neil that she knows, and this story kind of takes off from there, and it gives a lot of backstory as their relationship, how it's developed, all of that kind of thing. And there is a pretty interesting twist about halfway through that kind of puts the whole story into perspective and helps you understand what's going on. This is another relationship that I thought was extremely relatable. Georgie works for a TV station, and she writes TV shows of some sort. And she obviously puts a lot of time into her career. And I think as a result, she realizes that she's not putting as much time into her family as is necessary. And that's kind of the source of their conflict. Their relationship and what you learn about it over the course of the book is really, really interesting, and super relatable, super down to earth, super realistic. Moving on. The next book that I wanted to talk about is Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. I have not heard a lot of people talking about this particular novel, and I really loved it. So this centers our main character of Grace. Grace has just gotten her PhD. She is very much a type A personality that doesn't really take any risks or do anything particularly crazy. As a graduation present, her dad and stepmom buy her a trip to Las Vegas, and across this vacation, Grace ends up getting married drunkenly to a woman named Yuki, who she knows basically nothing about. And that's where this book starts. And then she and Yuki have to figure out what they want to do from here. Do they want to get to know each other, kind of figure out what's going on before they make any rash decisions? One of my favorite parts of this book, there are some sections where the characters are writing really poetic things to each other. And I think that's a part of romance novels that you don't see a whole lot. Not that they're not... Other romance novels aren't well written. There was just something about the way this is written and the way the two women write to each other that I just thought was entrancing. This is one of my favorite books of 2021, and I definitely recommend that you pick it up if you enjoy the romance genre and haven't read this one yet. I couldn't make it through this list without talking about The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I know this book kind of has controversial opinions, but I really particularly enjoyed it. So this book features our main character of Addie LaRue, who is born in the 1700s in France, where she is kind of predetermined to get married to somebody of her parents' choosing. She very much doesn't want to do that. She wants to live her own life and make her own choices. She ends up making a deal with the devil, so to speak, and as a result, nobody remembers her once she walks out of a room. But she's immortal. And for a very, very, very long time, this continues to be true until one day she meets a man named Henry who remembers who she is once she leaves the room. The relationship that develops in this particular novel is really enjoyable, especially once you figure out kind of sort of the reason why Henry remembers Addie LaRue. I really enjoy their dates, the way they interact, the way they talk. I think it very much feels like two people who have gone through some really terrible times, getting together and kind of sort of making it work. So I really enjoyed this, and I personally would recommend it, but I completely understand that this is not necessarily a popular opinion. And the last book that I wanted to talk about today is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So this novel stars our main character of Evelyn Hugo, who is basically recanting her entire life story for a reporter named Monique. Evelyn has multiple relationships across the course of this book, but there's one in particular, and if you read the book, you absolutely know which one I'm talking about, that definitely stands out the most. And I think one of the reasons that I enjoyed their relationship as much as I did is because I thought it was, one, fairly shocking. Definitely wasn't expecting that in a really enjoyable way. And two, it really dives into the difficulties of, social acceptance and changing yourself to fit what you think other people want. That particular relationship was definitely one of the things that kept me reading, and easily one of the reasons I gave that book 5 stars. If you have not picked that up, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. Alright guys, so that is 5 book romances that I definitely enjoyed the most. If you guys like this video, please like and subscribe and hit the bell icon for notifications. I typically post content once every 5 days, but at least once a week. And I will see you guys again soon. Bye!